everyone. Welcome to another brand new episode of the Jedi Way here on the Outlaw Nation channel. I'm one of your co-hosts. I'm the Outlaw John Rocha, joined as always by Laura Kelly, sporting an awesome Lucasfilm shirt you got there, Laura.
Representing, I gotta say, Lucasfilm is getting a little bit of attention on YouTube right now. So I thought I would show a little bit of support today.
Absolutely. We got so much to talk about within the world of Lucasfilm and Disney. Here's so much Star Wars news is popping off here with the new Kenobi cast announcements, the Bad Batch trailer. We're also going to take a little bit of a walk down memory lane. Now that we've got this Kenobi cast announcement, they're going to start shooting in April. We thought we'd take a look at Obi-Wan Kenobi as a character and his history and his story in the world of Star Wars. And of course, we are live. So we see you in the chat already, people commenting. That's so great to see. If you're in here for the first time, welcome. We just go back and forth between each other. I'll occasionally bring in your comments and see any questions. If you want to send in some super chats and Streamlabs, the address is up there above our heads there in the middle, somewhere in the middle there. And then also it is pinned to the chat and in the description of this video. So all there for you to send in Streamlabs or any questions you might have. And everything we do here on the Outlaw Nation show, it is through your support and your love. So thank you so much for joining us today. Laura Kelly, it's been a heck of a week in Star Wars. I know you've been raring to talk about it. We took the week off last week and now we're back. So what is jumping out at you? What is this feeling? Are you sensing kind of like spring? It feels like Star Wars spring. Are you getting that excitement, that buzz in your fingers?
Very much so. Spring has certainly sprung this week in terms of Star Wars news. It's like, so, I feel like we've been in this drought for so long. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, we're getting a Bad Batch trailer. We're getting this gigantic cast announcement for Kenobi. All these people I had no idea were even connected to this show. I feel like we were getting a lot of leaks or sort of rumors now and then about Kenobi casting and Andor casting. But I think probably 80% of the people that showed up on this list are people I had no idea were going to be connected to this show. So I'm really excited. Loving it.
Absolutely. Where would you like to start?
Well, let's start with our with Obi-Wan Kenobi. Let's start a little bit with his journey. Let's back up a little bit from where we are.
Okay.
We'll sort of cover we'll kind of get as close as we can to kind of cover what's going on around the time of the Obi-Wan show.
Yeah, great point.
But yeah, I feel like what we heard about the timeline of that show was a long time ago.
Mm-hmm.
The writer has since switched over. It could have changed, but we'll talk about what we know so far.
Yeah, let's do it.
Exactly. So I want to start sort of at the very beginning of what I know, at least, of Obi-Wan's journey. I do want to preface this by saying I don't read a lot of Star Wars comics. So if more of his stories sort of hit on in comic form, I have missed that. So I will not apologize for that. Just know that that's the case. So where I'm aware that Obi-Wan's story started is in 40 years before the Battle of Yavin. It's the Master and Apprentice book by Claudia Gray. So that's this book that's set 8 years before The Phantom Menace. And it's sort of this introduction to Obi-Wan Kenobi and Qui-Gon Jinn and their relationship and sort of where Obi-Wan is in his mindset in this time.
Yeah. It's a fun exploration of where he's at. That's one of the great joys of the Obi-Wan Kenobi character and why he has existed for so long. It is that there's still so much more to discover about him, so much more to explore, and his early beginnings here and his relationship with Qui-Gon, what side where he's coming from, how Qui-Gon reacts to him, and how that kind of decorates the relationship in terms of the foundation of it all when we see them in Phantom Menace for the first time on screen. When we get this background now, you can go back and watch their relationship, watch their interactions and what have you, and use this as a great kind of barometer to judge how well they've done in kind of imbuing that into their performances and their characterizations, Liam Neeson and Ewan McGregor.
Most definitely. And I think one of the more interesting things that I observed in this book about their relationship was the fact that Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon seem to have been sort of paired together because they are so extremely opposite. We can see that in The Phantom Menace and their relationship then, but it's even more pronounced when Obi-Wan Kenobi is a teenager. He's only about 18 years old. In this book. So it's the journey of him and Qui-Gon on their way to a planet called Pijal and sort of their mission that takes place on that planet. We learn a little bit about like why Obi-Wan Kenobi is not into flying. Funnily enough, he like was a pretty enthusiastic pilot in his younger days, and we kind of see what causes him to not be that in this book. It's kind of funny. It's one of those things that it didn't need an explanation, but we got one anyway, and it's just kind of interesting. So definitely worth picking up. We also get some references to his early relationship with Duchess Satine on Mandalore. So we'll circle back to that later in our discussion, but it's kind of fun if you've seen the Clone Wars at that point and you kind of know how it ends, to just jump back to like back when it was this new young love. It was just it was very cute, and it's not there's not a ton of content in it, but it's just adorable the little bit that we get.
Absolutely. And then we jump right into what you've got here, right into the Phantom Menace here, just only a few years later. Already their relationship has developed, their relationship has kind of established itself. And you're right to talk about the differences, right? Because Obi-Wan is one of these people that is he's one of these young guys is like, this is what we should do. This, like young guys usually are. This is the right way. This is the way we go. Whereas Qui-Gon, being a little bit older, a little more connected to the spiritual universal wavelengths, for lack of a hippie term, he feels more, he's a more organic Jedi. He goes where he thinks is the right place to go, where he senses is the right place to go. Where with Obi-Wan needs the parameters. Qui-Gon is very much existing where he feels the need to go, regardless of the parameters. And certainly we see that in the Phantom Menace right off the bat. Almost.
Exactly. I love the chemistry that we get between them right off the bat. You can tell that their relationship is incredibly comfortable. At this point, it's been like 7 years since this book that Claudia Gray wrote. And they just have, they've got like a witty banter that it just works. And it's great chemistry. It was amazing casting, I think, to cast Liam Neeson and Ewan McGregor in these roles. But yeah, we all know what happens in the Phantom Menace. We have the mission to Naboo to save the Queen, or the mission on behalf of the Chancellor, and then we have to save the Queen. We have to help her escape. The detour to Tatooine, meeting young Anakin is sort of this big turning point. I mean, it's kind of this like quick little nothing scene where Anakin's like, "Oh, you're a Jedi too? Well, I guess you're pretty cool, and you're the only other cool person on this ship. Nice to meet you." And then we're back to Naboo, and of course, the death of Qui-Gon Jinn, very much a turning point in Obi-Wan's life.
Yeah, and this is where I think everything stems off of. And, Dave Filoni did a fantastic explanation about how the death of Qui-Gon changed everything, right? Because Qui-Gon is the one that pushes to have Anakin join their crew, takes him away from his mom, Shmi, talks about midichlorians, talks about his gifted nature, and the chosen vibe. There's always that vibe running through all Star Wars, the chosen one, you're the chosen one, all of that, restore the balance, all of that is here. And Qui-Gon kind of violates some of the what the other Jedi might feel would be the right decision at this time. And certainly Obi-Wan is very clear at telling him that we don't need to take this kid with us. Why are you doing this? And all of that. So he's thrust upon Obi-Wan, and Obi-Wan rolls with it, but not in a comfortable way. And then at the end, Qui-Gon his dying wish is for Obi-Wan to train Anakin. So already there's a deficit in relationship. And by that, I mean, he's handed them. He hasn't chosen Anakin. He has handed Anakin, and there's a responsibility that he carries, which is a pressure on Obi-Wan to raise Anakin. And Anakin, of course, as he gets older, rebels and pushes back and needs his own space, as he would against any father figure. The problem is that Obi-Wan is an older brother, not a father figure. And I think that is what leads to the destruction of that relationship and the rivalry that develops over time.
Exactly. But when we're in Attack of the Clones, I think we kind of get a little bit of the taste of, especially early in the film, of this chemistry between Obi-Wan and Anakin. It feels a little, it feels sort of similar to Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan, where there's a chemistry, there's a witty banter that seems very natural. At this point, Obi-Wan and Anakin have now been together for 10 years. So naturally that would develop over time. But yeah, we definitely see this more rebellious side of Anakin, which, you talk about Qui-Gon as the father, they definitely have that in common. Yeah. I mean, obviously it's more like angsty teen with Anakin, and it was much more like wisely driven, I think, with Qui-Gon Jinn. But, rebellious no less, and, willing very much to sort of bend the rules to get what he needs done.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think, sending Obi-Wan on this hunt to hunt for Padme's would-be assassin and sending Anakin off on his own on his first solo mission, we're getting a lot of like, kind of inside knowledge of what their relationship has been like.
Mm-hmm.
Anakin's telling Padme that, Obi-Wan is, overly judgmental of him and thinks he's too unpredictable to be able to take the Jedi trials. But it's an interesting test of their relationship to see them separated now in this film.
Yeah, and that's the frustrating part for Obi-Wan, because once again, Anakin is very much, I don't kind of say this, but very much a spiritual successor to Qui-Gon, in that Anakin is a very organically driven guy as well, who doesn't necessarily always follow the rules, who follows the rules. He violates them when he thinks what he thinks is right. Certainly we see that in the Clone Wars on a number of missions. He does things that he thinks is the right way to do them, even if they violate the rules or even if they violate the tenets of the Jedi Code, which is why Obi-Wan feels like he's not ready to do it. He's not really dialed in. But of course, Anakin, this desire to achieve, this desire to, and maybe driven by the sense that he feels he's owed these kinds of things. He's owed this status and what have you, which is why he complains to Padme about it, because he wants to already be someplace that he hasn't yet earned the spot to be at, but he senses he deserves to be there. And that really causes the friction between him and Obi-Wan, because Obi-Wan has been the slow learner, trying to grab all the tenets and put them in motion and understand them, and because he's more of a cerebral guy than Anakin. It doesn't mean that either one can't be correct in a certain moment. It just means there are two different approaches, as you pointed out earlier, Laura. And I feel like Anakin is very much the spiritual successor of Qui-Gon's approach to being a Jedi.
For real. And it makes me wonder, like what Anakin could have been if he hadn't been set on this path and groomed by Palpatine. It's like, it would have been really interesting to see him grow up sort of in this shadow of Qui-Gon, and sort of live in that same way, in that same vein. Would have been fun to see. But in Attack of the Clones, we do get one of these crucial moments where Qui-Gon actually comes up in conversation between Obi-Wan and Dooku. And I sometimes wonder that if it had been any other Jedi that wasn't Qui-Gon that had been mentioned in that conversation, if Obi-Wan wouldn't have reacted the way he had been. If he had if he would have been more willing to listen to Dooku and what he was saying, who was telling him the truth in that moment, things may have ended differently. If he hadn't brought up Qui, that was a sore spot for Obi-Wan. It had been 10 years, but it takes a long time for a wound like that to heal. So
yeah, for sure.
Thus the beginning of the Clone Wars.
Well, and Obi-Wan doesn't get away either. Obi-Wan sometimes can be reactionary, can be frustrated in the moment as he's trying to figure out his world too, trying to figure out where he belongs. Teacher, because remember, he's still a young Jedi when Qui-Gon is killed, so he has to take on this teacher role. What's that pressure like? How does that age you? How does that take you out of your natural progression as a Jedi that would be if you were just under your master the whole time? We saw that in Rebels with Freddie Prinze Jr.'s character there, like how his master was taken away from him when he was a young Jedi, and how that ended up decorating how he came about and how he viewed being a Jedi and how incomplete his training was. But here he is training Ezra, and so there's this kind of thing where the handoff is not always easy, and when the handoff is not easy, it can be detrimental to the overall growth of both Jedi.
Exactly. But it's always interesting to see, we've got another example here of like the stories sort of rhyming with each other, where you've got a, not ready Jedi Knight being forced to sort of take on an apprentice, and having that sort of responsibility thrust upon them makes them greater, stronger, more powerful characters in the end. So it's really interesting to sort of see the parallel there between Obi-Wan and Kanan Jarrus. I kind of love how that connects to each other.
It's a good point. It's a good point. All right, where are we off to next?
Well, when we're in the Clone Wars, we've got a lot of very sassy Obi-Wan. I love that they took it in this direction for this show. Like, they sort of brought back the like Phantom Menace era Obi-Wan Kenobi that we saw. He's like, you said the negotiations would be short, and he's got sort of that mischievous look in his eye. We're bringing in sort of that fun energy and mischievousness in the Clone Wars, and it's a really fun spin throughout the entire series. Obviously it gets very heavy at points too, but throughout the entire series, we see very much how Obi-Wan Kenobi is an incredibly gifted a duelist. He's an incredibly gifted Jedi, and it's, we see him leading the clones into battle. We don't see him running behind and sort of just like sending in the orders from the back of the front. He's up at the front leading his people into battle. He builds this close relationship with Cody, and he's General Kenobi, and it's just it's really cool to see that all of a sudden, we kind of see him having to deal with this rebellious teenager, and now all of a sudden he's this very powerful general running an army or a section of the army in this horrific galactic war.
Yeah, and that's the thing that is so great, which is why I'm excited for a Kenobi series, and we'll get to that cast in a little bit. But this is a character that has responsibility thrust upon him consistently and constantly. Moved up the chain, handed things, because people sense that he has a character that is strong enough to handle this kind of responsibility, that is smart enough, that is not a reactionary character for the most part, that is in a more cerebral, intelligent approach. And that allows people to feel more comfortable, to feel confident in his leadership, to follow him, to fight for him, and what have you. And that really rings true as you're watching the Clone Wars and how people react to Obi-Wan as he goes along through the multiple seasons of the Clone Wars and ages into this kind of strong, confident Jedi, a little more even calmer than he was before. And yes, the smirkiness is always still there, but it's never played to undercut. It's always played to kind of make a comment on the situation, and maybe even at times calm nerves about the situation.
Exactly. And we get a lot of pivotal moments in the Clone Wars as well that are sort of meant to test Kenobi as well. We see the return of Maul. That's sort of a big surprise for Obi-Wan, who, last time we saw Maul, he'd cut him in half. Why in the world would this person still be alive? Question we all still ask ourselves. But so it's a pivotal moment. But then that also ultimately leads to, this reunion with Duchess Satine, and ultimately her death at the hands of Maul. Obi-Wan has to sit there and watch Darth Maul like kill the love of his life. And it's such a horrific moment, but it is such a crazy moment in terms of like the emotional like buildup of Obi-Wan Kenobi as a character. We do see him sort of being the comic relief in a lot of the Clone Wars. We see him in battle a lot. We don't really take a lot of time to like stop, take a breath. What's going on inside of his head? What kind of things from the past is he bringing into this war? We see him and Satine sort of, verbally sparring an awful lot, but ultimately he tells her that, if she had said the word in their younger days, he would have left the Jedi Order to be with her. And so it just makes that moment where she ultimately dies at the hands of Maul just that much sadder.
Yeah, it's a second, and this is the thing that's fascinating is there could have been an option to take Obi-Wan into this angry place, into the Anakin place, right? But Obi-Wan lost two very important people in his life to the hands of Maul. And when we get to that final in Rebels between him and Maul, that incredible episode, it is very simply done. And it's almost like there's even, in some messed up way, a certain level of respect that's developed between the two warriors and the two men in the path that they've chosen to walk. And you would think, if he had a different personality, he'd be bloodthirsty for revenge, but he's very much into the spirituality of the Jedi, the spirituality of the concepts of the Jedi. So it allows him to deal with these losses and these surprising twists and turns in a level-headed manner, not without the jokes, but still a level-headed manner. And that comes through so many times throughout the Clone Wars.
It does. And it's actually one of the things that I'm enjoying a lot about the High Republic. We see a lot more Jedi in those stories with that sort of attitude.
Yeah.
And it's different and it's interesting. And it's very much like there are a lot more Jedi, I think, that are a little bit more Obi-Wan-esque in that sense.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to see. But when we move on to Revenge of the Sith, we now, we've talked about Obi-Wan moving up the ladder. We've got him now on the Jedi Council.
Yeah.
We see him serving as Red Leader in the Battle of Coruscant, despite the fact that he's really not into flying.
Yeah.
And then we've got him and Anakin on this very important mission to save the Chancellor from General Grievous. And again, like Anakin and him have spent all this time in the Clone Wars sort of going their separate ways. Now it's sort of an old hat not a big deal thing. And we've
Mhm.
got Obi-Wan on his way over to Utapau, and Anakin sort of staying put and taking on this mission to spy on the Chancellor on Coruscant.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And you know, and like you mentioned, he confronts these things and he overcomes these things. Like flying, it's not something he necessarily, like you said earlier, is not a big fan of, but he's willing to do it once again, sacrificing for the larger cause, overcoming his own stuff so that the overall mission can be accomplished. And we see so much, we see like the tragic parts of it, of their relationship here, as we see the schism start to develop really powerfully in the third film. And that's where you just feel for Obi-Wan as he's trying so desperately to bring Anakin back. You could almost say, Laura, that after all this time, he's finally come around to actually care for Anakin, to worry for Anakin, to see what Qui-Gon saw in Anakin, if he can just get him to focus. And this is the part of where Obi-Wan struggles throughout the whole film about trying to get him to get back on track. He's tried all these different tactics as you're watching the movie to get Anakin to not go down the path that he eventually goes down. There's only so much he can do. And then once what happens, he pulls out, he's still a warrior. He's still very much a Jedi who will fight for what is the right thing, even at the expense of Anakin. Or almost.
I know, it's so sad. Yeah. We've got Order 66 that happens, and Obi-Wan, of course, is one of the few that survives. But, you know, going into that temple with Yoda, and he sees those security recordings of Anakin, it's just, I mean, you can just see his heart breaking. It's so awful. But yes, he does ultimately take the mission to go to Mustafar, follows Padme aboard her ship to go to Mustafar to find Anakin. And we see the full-on lava-filled confrontation between the two of them.
And you gotta ask yourself, like, how much of this is going to be interesting, and we'll get to the Kenobi in just a second, but how much of this is going to be in the performance of Ewan McGregor? How much of the guilt, as you just mentioned, watching those videos, watching what Anakin does in those security videos? You know, Yoda's, 800, 900 years old by this time. So him seeing that, he's seen so many things. But Obi-Wan is still relatively young in terms of age compared to Yoda. And so for him to see someone that he taught, he guided, he thought he could get to a spot, to see him do the things that he's doing, how much responsibility must he take on? How much of that, after he's finished the fight with Anakin, does he carry with him? How much of the failure, failing Qui-Gon in a way, how much of that does he take on and causes him to kind of hide out and go into this sort of monastic lifestyle? I don't know, but it's something to really consider as you rewatch these films and rewatch where we're going to go, and take a look at where we might be going in the Kenobi series.
Well, exactly. And I think the thing I'm most interested to see is how are they going to express that in this show, when it kind of seems like it would be something that's just going on in Obi-Wan's head a lot. Like, how are we going to get that exposition sort of told out loud in a way that makes sense, so that it's not just, all the narration in the show is just that. We want to show us, don't tell us.
Right, exactly.
So that's what I'm hoping for. But the next time we're going to see Obi-Wan Kenobi after Revenge of the Sith is going to be 9 years before the Battle of Yavin. So we're 10 years after Revenge of the Sith. And that is where the Kenobi series is allegedly going to be set. We know primarily it seems that they're going to be on Tatooine. What are your thoughts, John, on the fact that, like, are we going to be on Tatooine this entire time? Do you think he's going to take off? I mean, we've seen now the cast. We know Hayden's going to be in it. I don't know about Hayden going back to Tatooine. We don't know that Vader isn't really wild about that. They've got to confront each other at some point in the show. What are your thoughts?
I think there'll be more than one confrontation. And I think between them, and I think, it's only a 6-episode series, or I guess maybe they'll build up to one. But I feel like you have to have a couple of confrontations here, whether verbally or with lightsabers. You have to have this at some point. Do I think it's going to be Tatooine based only? No, I'd be very surprised if he doesn't fly off on some other mission to some other planet, or for whatever reason, make sure Luke's, because Luke's going to be with Uncle Owen and Aunt Beru. So how much of the confrontation will be there? How much of him kind of hovering around will there be? So I think there's going to be a lot of time for him to go off and do these missions and not necessarily be Tatooine based, but then again, you got to factor in the fact that he might be afraid. What does he know about Anakin? Does he know that Anakin is Vader? When is he going to find that out? Right? When does he really kind of get in touch with that? And does he sense him? And when he senses him, what's that confrontation going to be like? Because once again, Laura, here's someone that he thought he finished off and left for dead coming back to confront him, the sins of his past or the mistakes of his past coming back to confront him. So what's that going to be like? And I look forward to the philosophical conversation that these two gentlemen are going to have as actors and as characters in Kenobi. So yeah, I don't think it's going to be fully Tatooine based. I think there's going to be other adventures to other planets, but of course he's got to be mindful because after Order 66, he is a rare commodity in the world, in the galaxy right now. What do you think? Do you think we'll stay mostly Tatooine based, or do you think we'll go off on a couple of missions to other planets?
No, I think we got to go off planet. I've been saying this in the beginning, and I've had an argument with people about this who are like, no, he's got a mission. He's got to watch Luke. I'm like, no way. Like, I don't know if he makes a friend on Tatooine where he can like have the friend watch over Luke or something. We're talking about Luke at this point would be like 9-10 years old. Like he is very much probably under the care of his aunt and uncle. He's got like two people that can watch over him much more closely than Obi-Wan can from a distance. So I think that it's a fair enough assumption that we'll be going off planet at some point. But we've got this gigantic cast of people. Yeah. Are all of these people going to be Tatooine citizens? Probably not. But I think that's one of those things where it just can't be that contained. I know it's only 6 episodes, but there's just no way they can keep the whole story there. It's just, it just can't happen. I refuse to let that happen. I'm putting that into the universe now. Please go off planet at some point.
How many stories can you tell of him just fending off possible people who might know Luke? That to me sounds like a boring series. It's called Kenobi. It's not called Kenobi and Luke. It's not called Kenobi the babysitter. It's called Kenobi. So that to me feels like we're going to get a more character development within the character of Obi-Wan as we go into, because I don't think they're going to do the 6 episodes and it'll lead right on up to where he becomes old Alec Guinness. I think it's just going to be like a certain very important section of time that he is on Tatooine there, being kind of a guardian of Luke in some way, shape, or form. And nothing says that the overall idea of him wanting to protect Luke won't lead him off planet, right? To pursue something so that stops that from coming to Tatooine, whoever that may be. So that's the thing. That's the place where I'm at mentally. So I agree with you. Put it into the universe. We can't be Tatooine based the whole time, for the love of God. Do we want to take a look at this cast list, or what do you want to do at this point? What are you feeling?
No, I like that idea. Let's jump down to this cast list that came out earlier this week that, of course, has Ewan McGregor and Hayden Christensen that we knew. I'm very surprised that it never leaked that we were going to be getting Joel Edgerton. And I don't know how to say her last name. Bonnie, is it Peace? I don't know.
Yeah, Bonnie Pease, yeah. Got
it. That are going to be returning as Owen and Beru. That's very exciting to me. I think this is going to be it's going to be an interesting reunion. I mean, Joel Edgerton, I feel like he's kind of a big name actor. Like, it makes me wonder. I'm like, are we just going to get like one little cameo of him, or is he going to be in like the whole series? I feel like there's no medium.
That's a great question. And you look at this list and the way it's brought out. I mean, yeah, absolutely with Joel Edgerton. But I don't think Joel Edgerton is any bigger than Ewan McGregor. So if Ewan McGregor can do 6 episodes, I'm sure Joel can as well. Look at all these Marvel series that have come out from Disney Plus as well, Laura. I mean, we've got Sebastian, we've got Anthony Mackie. Anthony Mackie's working a lot on the other side of things. We just had Pedro Pascal, who's doing a lot of things. Rosario Dawson, she's been in a number of things. So Joel is right around the right mix. Tom Hiddleston certainly has been the lead in a number of movies. So he's right around the right mix, in my opinion, for what needs to happen or what we need to see here. But let me see if I could bring up the whole cast list here so we can have a fun conversation. Yeah, here's the whole cast list. Ewan Hayden, then Moses Ingram, which a lot of people are speculating. We'll come back to Laura on this. A lot of people are speculating she might be Rey Sloane. She might be a young Ahsoka Tano. I've seen those speculations there. You mentioned Joel Edgerton and Bonnie P.S. It's always great to see Bonnie back in this role. If you've watched The Vow, that HBO series on that crazy Nexium cult, she was a huge part of that. So to see her kind of embracing the role that led to her being into this cult, it's kind of a full circle thing because she's gotten out of that cult. She fought her way out of that cult, and now she's coming back to the role that really made her name. It'll be great to see her kind of embrace that again. Kumail Nanjiani, a lot of people speculating he might be a droid. Indira Varma, we mentioned that, or the voice of a droid, rather. We mentioned Indira Varma already. Rupert Friend, a lot of people saying he could be an Inquisitor. Rupert Friend. O'Shea Jackson Jr., always great to see. Soon Kang, New Zealand actress Simone Cassell, and Benny Safdie, who's one half of the Safdie brothers, who, of course, directed Uncut Gems. So it's an incredible cast, a diverse cast, a multi-talented cast. So there's a lot of avenues to pursue here. When you look at this cast, what stands out for you? Obviously, other than Joel, and we'll get back to Uncle Owen and Aunt Beru for real, but what else stands out from you from this cast? What are the speculations come jumping into your head? I mean, I've heard Asajj Ventress as a possibility. What do you see happening here?
Yeah, that's the thing with Moses Ingram. I think that this is, she had posted something, I think, on her Instagram saying that she has been playing with lightsabers, which I'm sort of guessing may have just been like a general reference to Star Wars.
Right.
But yeah, when people saw that, they immediately began reading into it, fair enough, and are suspecting that she might be playing a live action Ahsoka Tano, a younger version, or maybe I would guess maybe a flashback of Asajj Ventress potentially, because Asajj Ventress in this timeline has been dead now for about 10 years. So it's not going to be a current Asajj Ventress. Or I don't know. They bring people back all the time.
They do, Laura.
What do I know? But it's great to see her. The first thing that stood out to me too is that this is an incredibly diverse cast. This is really exciting. I had not considered that Kumail Nanjiani might be playing a droid. I love that. I think that makes perfect sense, 100%. Still, it would be nice to see him on screen as always. But this is going to be, I think, a very, very well produced show. Looking at this cast, like they're putting out the big bucks on all this stuff. You mentioned Falcon and the Winter Soldier and WandaVision. Obviously, a lot of money has gone into both of those. And I think we're looking at approximately the same budget here too. This is going to be great.
That's sure. It starts shooting in April. Deborah Chow still in charge of this one. As you mentioned, the writers have changed over, but it's Deborah Chow still leading the way on this one as the director of the series. Let's jump into some quick Streamlabs and Super Chats people asking about already. Ladies and gentlemen, if you want to send in a Streamlabs question you want Laura and I to answer on this live show, please look at the screen right above our heads in the middle there. There's the address. You can go do that, or the address is in the chat. I pinned it in the chat, or in the description of this video. So go in there to send in your Streamlabs or your Super Chats. Annabelle Roman says, just here for the excellent roundup and content. Y'all rock. Well, thank you, Annabelle. It's very kind.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. I like that. All right, let's see the Streamlabs right here. The first one's from Justin Toner. He says, hey, John and Laura, I was already excited for the Obi-Wan series, and the cast announcement made me even more excited than before. I love the return of Owen and Beru. Does that mean we may see a young Luke in the show? Also, odds on a Force Ghost Qui-Gon. Yeah, they haven't said anything about Qui-Gon Jinn. I imagine they're sitting on that until the absolute last minute. But what do you think about the fact that there might be a young Luke cast? Remember, there was all that controversy, certainly over Jake Lloyd and what has happened with his life since Phantom Menace, which is kind of a tragedy. But you look at this situation here, people were freaking out that you might recast Luke Skywalker with Sebastian Stan. So do you think there's a possibility they would take the chance on finding a young Luke Skywalker? Is there any chance a young Luke doesn't show up in Kenobi?
I don't see how there could be a chance he doesn't show up. I think it's inevitable. When we saw that Owen and Beru are coming back, I don't see how you would have them in there without Luke. I just think that, and especially since that's supposed to be Obi-Wan's charge,
right?
You got to have him in there at some point. So I have a feeling that he's definitely going to show up in this series, which will be interesting to see how they pull this off, what kind of child actor they get, and how much screen time this character is getting in the show.
Do you sense there'll be a combative relationship between Kenobi and Owen and Beru?
Yeah, and I think that's something that came out of maybe the Kenobi novel, or maybe there's some comics, that there's definitely a sort of, there's some tension for sure between Owen and Obi-Wan. we definitely, I think we see that especially in A New Hope, how Owen sort of talks about Kenobi. He doesn't at all seem like, it doesn't at all feel friendly, you know?
Yeah.
But I think in the Kenobi book, there is something, which is Legends, but I have a feeling that they might be pulling maybe some aspects of that book into the show.
Yeah.
That they certainly are not getting along. I almost wonder if like Beru actually might be on the other side of it, where she's maybe a little bit more friendly with Kenobi and is able to sort of like pass on little like, you know, tidbits about Luke and like how he's doing and what he's up to, and might be a little bit more amicable and willing to share. But at the end of the day, I'm just excited to be getting more Beru at all. You know, we didn't get a ton of her in A New Hope. And I think there was one of the prequels where I don't think she had any lines at all. And so I think that this will be a really cool opportunity to get to have a little bit more of her story. She had a story, and from a certain point of view, for A New Hope, that I thought was actually really nice, and definitely provided a little bit more, you know, made it a little bit more of a well-rounded character. So hopefully they pull a little bit from that, and we can kind of see maybe a different side of Beru as well.
Okay, Force Ghost Qui-Gon Jinn. Anyway, that doesn't happen.
Yeah, you know, somebody else asked me about this recently. I think they DM'd me on Twitter, and I'll tell you what I told them. I think they're not going to announce it. I think it's going to be a surprise. And I would be willing to, you know, to say that, and then to say like, oh, I think it's just going to be voiceover, like it doesn't feel like enough, right?
Yeah.
So I have to think that he might show up in person, like as a Force Ghost.
Could he appear to both? Could he appear in the middle of the fight between Kenobi and Vader and Anakin? Does Qui-Gon show up as a Force Ghost in the middle of the fight? We've never seen that, right? We've seen Kenobi speak to Lucas before he shoots in the middle of the air battle there, but we have never seen a Force Ghost show up in the middle of a fight on screen in a movie. So in a show or movie. So it would be interesting to see Qui-Gon show up there. What would be the interaction at that point? What would be the conversation? It could be stunning. Someone mentions also that I don't know where it was, that he might go off world to stop Vader from sensing Luke. Like that, if Vader came to Tatooine, he would sense Luke. But if you've read the comics, there's kind of a moment where Boba kind of reveals that Luke might still be alive, or that Vader senses the possibility that he has children. And I don't know how much of that they might layer into this show, but it could be a reason why Kenobi goes off-world, is to confront Vader, to stop him from coming to Tatooine, because he might sense that Luke is there. That could be an excuse for him to go off-world, don't you think?
Yeah, certainly. And I think that would be a really good idea for a distraction. If he senses that Vader's near, if he sort of makes his way towards Vader, Vader will stop in his tracks and go after Obi-Wan rather than heading closer to Planetfall.
Yeah.
Also, we know that Vader's going to do anything in his power to avoid setting foot on Tatooine. So I kind of like, there's whatever confrontation they have, you best believe it's probably not happening on Tatooine.
That's a great point. It's actually a really good point. Oh my God. Gregory Jensen says, of the cast members that haven't been announced for the Obi-Wan series, like Liam Neeson and Natalie Portman. Oh, I didn't even think about Natalie Portman. Do you think we will get a surprise appearance from any other prequel era characters? Oh, interesting. Do you think we'll get any prequel era characters that might show up here in this series?
You know, I've kind of been asking myself if like any sort of flashbacks might be involved in this. I kind of think no, for whatever reason, just because I just don't think they're going to go there. We don't do a lot of flashbacks in Star Wars anyway. And I think that, you know, we saw all of that in live action, and I don't think that they're going to take a Clone Wars sequence from the animated series and make that live action. That's just not, it's just not something that they do. You know, they want to honor what came before. You're not going to take that piece and redo it. So I think that if we do see anybody from the prequel era, it'll be, I don't know. That's a tough one. That's hard to question, because I'm just like, I've been kind of wondering this whole time. I was like, oh, it would be really cool to see like a flashback or something of Order 66 from like a different point of view. But we also got that in like season 7 of the Clone Wars. So I don't think we need to revisit that. But I think either way, at the end of the day, I feel like there's going to be some more cast members that weren't on this list that are meant to be kept secret and are meant to be a surprise. And I'm telling you, I won't be surprised if they actually keep all of these secrets hidden, because look at all of these secrets about this cast that they kept up till now.
Yeah.
So
true.
I think that they've got everything locked down pretty tight wherever they're going to be filming this thing. I think that we're in for a couple surprises at some point in this 6-episode series.
Yeah, I would think so. I mean, everything's in play that who's still alive. Yoda's a possibility. Yoda's still alive. Yoda could be a part of this in some way, shape, or form. Remember Yoda realizing the mistakes that they made as a council by the end of the prequels. So with that way on his mind, and of course you mentioned CPOV, the Empire Strikes CPOV has a fantastic story with Obi-Wan and Yoda having their conversations there. What would that? How would that play out into things going on here at this time? Is there something connected with them? Is Obi-Wan and Yoda going to have a scene at all? That could be fascinating to see be a part of this series as well. Jeremy Miller said, Ahmed's best already denied rumors of Jar Jar, but could be lying. I feel like one redemption at a time. I think, you start bringing it back. I mean, Ahmed already being a part of that game show, being in essence a Jedi in canon. I think that's good for now. I think, if you start doing too many in a 6-episode series, it almost feels like you're doing a mea culpa instead of creating a new a series, a new storyline, new section of Star Wars to enjoy. So I'd hate to see that happen. I don't see Natalie Portman coming. I just don't know that she would want to come back to something that was a source of such pain for her. Do you know what I'm saying? So I'd be very surprised if we saw Padme in this.
I would too. And I'm trying to imagine what it would be like to do like a scene with her and Hayden, but I'm like, again, if you're going to do something like that, like it would have to be like a flashback, and it's not something that we've seen a lot in Star Wars before. So I would be very surprised to see her too. I mean, I feel like, I guess I thought that she was going to like be taking some steps back from Marvel, but that's not the case since she's down in Australia filming. That also could be part of this, is that she's probably not available. I think she's still down there and down under filming Thor and Love and Thunder.
Absolutely. Let's see here. Julian Ramos, you sent something in. Let me go back to our show here. Oh, am I frozen? Oh, it looks like I might be frozen. So I'll just read the next Streamlab. Alan Smithy says, oh, no, there we go. Now I'm back. All right, here we go. Let me see if I can find it here. Julian Ramos says, do you guys think we'll see Rada the Hutt? Laura, do we see Rada the Hutt?
I would love this. I would love to have more Rada. I'm not going to lie. And that's not just because I have had to watch the Clone Wars film over and over and over again. That's a big part of it. But no, I love Rada the Hutt, and I love the idea of getting to see where he's ended up at some point in this story. I think that would absolutely be hilarious. And you know what I'm just now thinking about is the fact that this series is going to be taking place like concurrently with Solo, a Star Wars story. And I had if they're on their way to go see Jabba, like, is Rada still there? Why did we never see, Rada in the original trilogy? What's he up to now? I would like Rada a Star Wars story, please. Please.
Well, speaking of Rada, do you think, I mentioned earlier, do you think a young Ahsoka Tano rolls through here? Do you think that's too much?
I was thinking about that, and I was trying to remember when the Ahsoka book took place, and then I read online that it was just like a year after Revenge of the Sith, and then we kind of see her at the end of the novel joining up with Bail Organa, and sort of running through the sort of early days of the rebellion, I think, with him. So I've been wondering if Bail is going to show up in this show, and I feel like if he does, that might be like our first clue that Ahsoka might show up too.
Wow.
But yeah, we'll see. I think it's a very real possibility. We have like a period of roughly like 17 years where we really don't. Well, I guess that's not true, because then she shows up again in Rebels. So it's closer to like 15 years where we don't know what she's doing or where she is. So I don't think it's unquestionable that she could pop up in this. Part of me almost wonders if they might bring her in, not as like a way to like redo what they did in live action in The Mandalorian, but like maybe make some of the fixes that like people didn't like people really did not like the like short montrals and the like short, you know, like headpiece. And when she's younger, you can probably get away with that a little easier. Maybe you can explain it away a little bit better. So we'll see. I would wonder maybe if I think of all of the people that we could see show up, I think Ahsoka is one of the more likely candidates to like maybe make an appearance, even if it's just like a cameo or something in this film. Or in this series.
I like this idea of Bail. I mean, this could be another reason why he goes off world, to touch base with Bail to see how Leia's doing, right? Wouldn't he have some kind of interest in making sure? I mean, he was instrumental in Leia ending up with Bail Organa. So wouldn't that be something where they go maybe on a mini adventure, those two? Lord knows, I'd love to see Jimmy come back in some way, shape. They'd have to de-age Jimmy, of course, but I'd love to see him, but not too much. Brown don't frown too much, but like you have stuff to de-age him a little bit just to see what he'd be able to do in this situation, give him more to do than just, you know, standing around and barking out orders. I'd like to be nice to get involved with some action with him and Kenobi in some adventure. That could be a lot of fun, you know, but we're all speculating this madness, and it's only 6 episodes, people. So we'll see how long they are too, because Falcon and Winter Soldier is what, like 48 minutes each episode, or around that time. So it's a healthy amount of time in those episodes versus what we got with Mandalorian, which was close to 30-35 minutes. So that could be an interesting change of pace if they were to go that route, for sure. Let's see. Do you speculate on anyone else possibly showing up that we haven't spoken about yet with this cast?
I haven't given it much thought, I don't think. I actually really like the idea of Ray Sloan showing up at some point.
Yeah. Maybe Moses Ingram is her, or somebody else, maybe? For
sure. I could definitely see Moses Ingram being a possibility. I think she's probably the only other one. I honestly really haven't given it that much thought. I guess I would have predicted that Owen and Beru would show up. I'm just very surprised that they're revealing it right now. They're being so upfront about it. What about you? Is there anybody else that we haven't touched on?
No, I mean, I think we've touched on pretty much everybody. As I said, I feel like Kamal Najani would be fantastic as a bounty hunter, like one of these like clumsy bounty hunters that we've seen like in A New Hope. Those bounty hunters that we see are in Empire Strikes Back, like somebody like that who we don't anticipate being like Bosk being about. I mean, it'd be fascinating to see that played out in a certain way because of his comedic chops. We kind of, in a way, sidelined Phoebe Waller-Bridge as being the voice of L337, but it was great to see her do it. It just, I would have liked to have seen her on screen as well. So I'd be surprised. I'm sorry, I wouldn't be surprised if they went that route with Kumail, but I'd like to see something a little bit more. But I am leaning towards Inquisitor with Rupert Friend. I like the idea. He's got the look for it, and it'd be nice to see something like that on screen as well. Someone mentioned, hold on, let me see if I got another Streamlab here for you. It said, hi, it's from Alan Smithy. Hi, John and Laura. I'm wondering if you too know the details of Ventress's quote unquote death. Was it in the comics? Could she have survived? Ventress is one of my favorite characters in Clone Wars, and I'd love to see more of her in any future Star Wars. Thanks. Yeah, Laura, did we see a body? I always say that. Did we see a body? If we haven't, then there's possibilities. What do you think?
Well, Smithy, I'm sorry to be spoiling the book for you, but there's a book called Dark Disciple that's written by Christy Golden, and it sort of details Asajj's relationship with Quinlan Vos. It chronicles that whole story, and unfortunately culminates in that character's death right at the end of the Clone Wars. So Quinlan Vos lives. I wouldn't be surprised if he actually shows up in the Kenobi show, now that I think about it, because he is still alive, allegedly. But Asajj, her death is pretty final. And like Obi-Wan, I think, actually goes with Quinlan Vos to like take her body back to the Night Sisters, like back to her home planet. She is such a cool character. If you like her in the Clone Wars, you will love this book. Because I was like pretty indifferent to Asajj before I read the book, and then now I'm like hardcore stan. It's amazing. It's an amazing novel. I need to read the other Christy Golden novel that she's written for Star Wars, but she's an amazing writer, and she just does so much for those two characters in that book. So highly recommend checking that out. If there's more of her in the comics, I don't know, but definitely look at Dark Disciple.
Yeah, for sure. All right, where are we going? Any more to speculate on this Kenobi cast, or should we move on to the Bad Batch trailer?
No, let's move on to Bad Batch. Let's talk about the bad boys.
What'd you think there? Oh, so the new trailer dropped here. Are we frozen right now? I don't know if I'm frozen on my computer. I don't know if I'm frozen.
You're not frozen for me. So
all right, cool. I'll keep it going then. Screw it. I'll rely on you to read any super chats that come in because at this point I'm frozen. So so the Bad Batch trailer has come out. It came out yesterday. Right at the
Oh no, we lost John. Okay, that's too bad. Unfortunately, I don't have any way to control this StreamYard, so I am not going to be able to play the trailer for us, but I will definitely talk about it. The fact that we got 2 full minutes of more Bad Batch content was just like beyond anything I would have expected. I kind of expected actually to like not get another trailer. I think we had like a teaser, and then we had a full trailer, and now getting this was a huge surprise. So I really enjoyed this, and what I wrote out while watching it is pretty detailed. So I'll just kind of start and see where we get John back. There he is. Welcome back. Like I said, you never froze for me, so you were always there, and then you were gone.
Technology, man, technology.
He just wanted to see what I would do by myself, see how I would handle it. I improvised, John. I did good.
You're great at this now. Listen, so the Bad Batch show dropped yesterday. It was pretty fantastic. It was great to be back. Listen, like I said, if you know the Outlaw, if you know John Rocha, the Bad Batch checks every damn box you could have for Star Wars to get me into. Essentially Expendables in space. The lead kind of looks like that combo of those two characters, combo of Predator and Sylvester Stallone, all of that. And then we've got this in this new trailer. Now we see them kind of running through the obstacle course, kind of showing what they can do and why they're kind of somewhat of a threat to the Empire because they're not easily destroyed. They're not easily decommissioned. And we see that Grand Moff Tarkin is going to be the main villain, trying to kill off the Bad Batch throughout this series. And they're going to be going all over the place, multiple adventures. Fennec Shan was in this thing. Young Saw Gerrera was in this trailer as well. And we get introduced to this young New Zealand child. I don't know what the connection here might be. Is she a clone? Michael Vogel, one of the Geek Buddies, was telling me that she has the logo of one of the science officers or one of the medical officers there on Camino. So is this a new clone, a female clone? What are we doing here? And she's using the bow and arrow from one of the Night Sisters. So what are we doing here? Talk to me about this trailer, Laura.
Well, Michael Vogel knows a lot more about this child than I do. I didn't know that the bow and arrow was from the Night Sisters. I was just like, oh my God, is that like a weird lightsaber bow and arrow thing? Dope. No, I love this. She does have like that very like strong New Zealand accent. It is absolutely adorable. But I actually had to look this up because I wasn't sure where in the Greek alphabet Omega landed. I did not realize it is the last letter in the Greek alphabet. So I do think that this might be a clone. One of the like mutated clones that came out a girl of Jango Fett, maybe one of the very last clones that we saw, and that's how she got her name. I love the little like headpiece jewel thing she's wearing. I also didn't realize that was some sort of symbol we'd seen before. I just remember thinking like, oh, that kind of looks like Arvel Chris from High Republic. She's got like a little thing she wears on her head too, and it's very pretty. So I do wonder about her and where she sort of came from and how much we're going to see. I wondered initially when this show was first announced of like, how are we going to like incorporate people who one are not men into the show? We need to get some female energy in the show. And two, how are we going to incorporate people that aren't D. Bradley Baker into the show? So I'm excited to see that they clearly have put some effort into both checking both those boxes. And I'm really excited to see what happens to this very sweet little blonde New Zealand child in this in the show.
It's fascinating. I don't know what's the connection here with that, especially because she has the accent. The accent kind of makes you think this is, someone that might be a clone. And that's what you go in your mind mentally in all of this. So, I mean, Palpatine was experimenting with cloning for quite some time. So could this be one of his experiments, as you said, maybe a new clone here that kind of jumps into the fray. Certainly she's a warrior. Certainly she wants to go along on these missions. And obviously it solves that issue for Disney. Look, I don't know if anybody's seen Invincible. I hope you've seen the first 3 episodes of Invincible on Amazon Prime. It's excellent, but it's also pretty brutal and gory with the violence. So I was hoping that we get a little more of a PG-13 shades of R with Bad Batch. But when you put a little girl in it, unfortunately, no, we're not going to get enough of that. It's a way to kind of soften the edges a little bit, not make it too hardcore. And it seems to fit the pattern of Star Wars. Oh, because it is for kids. That's what George Lucas said from the beginning. I made it for kids. This kind of allows it to be still a little bit softer, even though it's going to be badass with all these characters. It's still going to be a little bit softer because they're having to communicate and connect with this young little girl. So, and she's tough as nails. So it's not like it's going to be all, sunshine and rainbows or cotton candy. It's going to be hardcore, but it'll be a little bit softer, I think, as well. So she serves that purpose overall. What else stood out from you from the trailer as you looked at it here, Laura? Have you seen any new adventures, the Fennec Shan stuff, some new creatures? What stood out for you?
Yeah, I love that Fennec Shan made a cameo in this. Although I will say, hitting the point of bringing in the little girl into this story sort of makes it obvious it's not going to go to a dark place.
Yeah.
I counter that with the movie Logan. So
true.
Would it not be cool if like Hunter was our Wolverine to the little girl? Yeah, I would be here for it. I'm just saying, I would watch that show.
Absolutely. 1,000% down for that.
I was very excited to see. I mean, we knew Tarkin was going to show up in the show at some point. I was very, I was happy to see that like his story a little bit more explained. Mm-hmm. It wasn't clear to me from the first trailer whether or not he was like teaming up with the Bad Batch somehow, or if he was like the antagonist, which is sort of what I figured. But I'm glad we sort of, we kind of hit both points in this trailer. We kind of got to see both sides of what we're going to see of Tarkin, I think, in this show.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that this is definitely going to be a fun adventure. I don't know. I'm still kind of wondering like how excited I am about this, just because like the Bad Batch arc in the Clone Wars show was not my favorite. Like they're great, but I am going to need something more besides just this team of dudes. Like I'm going to need more. I'm going to need a lot. We've got Fennec Shan, we've got this little girl. I'm really excited to see what dynamic they're going to be bringing to this show, because I'm going to need more than just clones. At some point, I sort of thought that like we might be seeing more Order 66. Mm-hmm. I would like to know what was going on with the Bad Batch during Order 66, what they were up to. Do they have inhibitor chips? If so, are they not working because they're already mutated? So maybe that's why they don't work. But I kind of got the feeling watching this trailer that we may not be seeing that much. But like the first trailer, there was like a scene with Palpatine where he's saying, the Republic will be reformed into the new Galactic Empire. We see that part of his speech. So clearly we're going back in time a little bit with this show. So fingers crossed that we get to see more of Order 66 from the Bad Batch point of view.
And look, I'm saying it's a girl, but it might not be a girl. Maybe I'm falling onto my old tropes as an older person here, thinking by the appearance it could be a girl. What if it's a young man? I was just reading here from Inverse that the speculation, if it's a young boy child, this could be Rey's father.
Interesting.
What's your reaction to that? Because it could be a clone, Palpatine messing with the clonings. Is this his quote unquote son who ends up squiring Rey down the road? Is that a possibility?
I haven't done the math, but I'm just like, does that math add up? I don't know.
Does it add up?
I don't
know. I'm throwing it out there.
I don't know. But I do think that's an interesting question. I mean, if she's going to be raised with like among the clones, she's going to end up with that New Zealand accent, I guess. But I don't know. That's kind of strange to me. I feel like most of the cloning experiment stuff is happening with the Mandalorian show, and I feel like they're gonna like keep that separate from this. That it's going to be a little bit more compartmentalized. Although I have seen some speculation that maybe we'll see Grogu in this show at some point if we're talking about cloning. But yeah, that would be an interesting thing to see. But I think that I think I must have read into it, like, because I was sort of questioning the same thing, where I was just like, is that a boy or a girl? My notes initially had the word child in it throughout because I couldn't decide.
Yes.
And then I watched like as a girl, and so I just went with their interpretation. So
yeah.
I'm
willing to throw it out there to see which side it's on. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. We got a little lag coming from your end, Laura, so I hope it kind of clears up a little bit. So hopefully everyone's heard it. Shout out to Blue Bantha Milk Company, who is here hanging out with us. I know that you did some stuff with them, so shout out to them. Thank you very much for stopping by. It's very kind of you. What was that experience like? What was it? A Solo 2? Is that what you guys did? Is that what you all were participating in?
Exactly. Yeah, the Blue Bantha Milk Company co-wrote a script for Solo 2, an AI story with an AI software. And it was a grand old time. We did it in 2 parts. So both parts are now online. You can watch the full show. But I played Kira, which was really fun. In part 1, I also played Bib Fortuna. But the show is absolutely ridiculous. It's a little not safe for work, a little bit adult, which just makes it all the more funny. Highly recommend checking it out on their channel, the Blue Bantha Milk Company. Solo 2, an AI story.
Yeah, there you go. Go take a look at that, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, see more of Laura Kelly's talents out there in the world of the internet for sure. Let's see. We got some Streamlabs that have come through. Kate Walton says, I feel like the Bad Batch series, more than Obi-Wan, will have survivors of Order 66 like Quinlan Vos, especially since they are on the run from the Empire as well. Yeah, what do you think about that, Laura? That's certainly a possibility, don't you think?
Exactly. And I think that's something that came up in a comic at one point, is we see like a list, maybe 2 comics actually. We see the list of like the Jedi that are out there and still alive. And I think the words are written in Aurebesh, so you had to like sit down and actually translate. You know, one of them was Quinlan Vos, I think. Yeah. One of them was Obi-Wan Kenobi. One was Yoda. And then there were like maybe a couple that we couldn't read. I didn't read the comic. I just remember seeing the picture later. Jocasta Nu, I think, was on that list, but she shows up in some comics later, and I think Vader actually kills her. But yeah, I would be very curious to see who shows up in that, because whatever we saw in that comic, I'm like, who knows if that was a comprehensive list? Right. You know, I don't think you could bank on that. Who knows who else might be out there? Oh yeah, Kanan Jarrus, of course, would have been on it at the time.
Yeah, Kanan Jarrus.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see. We're set about 5 years before Rebels starts in this show, so I kind of doubt that we'll see any members. Or I'm sorry, that would have been in Kenobi. But I actually would be curious to see how long this show goes. Number one, in terms of like timeline, and how far into that period between Revenge of the Sith and A New Hope we go. And number two, if we're going to get a second season of this show. I don't know if it's a one-off. Yeah, I don't know if it's been made clear if this is going to be a 1-season one-off, or if they might renew it for a second season and we might stay with these characters. I think they certainly have that potential to stay alive throughout more of this story for a longer period of time. So fingers crossed. I don't know. I think it'll be cool.
We saw Rex, didn't we, in this trailer? So Rex could have something really interesting. Will Commander Cody show up in this? What do you think on both those fronts, Laura?
Oh, Commander Cody. That's so tragic. It's really, one of the things that struck me was how many clone troopers we actually saw in this trailer that seem to be making appearances in this. None of them have any more of the like unique coloring on them, the unique designs that we see throughout the Clone Wars. So it's definitely become a lot more utilitarian in terms of the clone troopers. But Cody would be an interesting one to follow up on. We know that we're going to end up with Gregor and Wolf at some point joining up with Rex somewhere between Revenge of the Sith and Rebels. But I think that Saw Gerrera for whatever reason was like a surprise to me. I guess I should have like expected to see him at some point, but I was just like, holy shit, is that Saw Gerrera? Like I was really excited to see that. I'm kind of curious like what planet they're on. I'm like, surely he's not still on Onderon. like where he's from,
Yeah.
but I couldn't tell. I haven't revisited that arc in the Clone Wars recently, so I wasn't sure. Like one of the planets sort of looked very fancy with those statues. I didn't bother looking up if those were familiar to us at any point, but I wondered if that might be Naboo. The way that the trailers cut, it kind of seems like it might be the same place where Saw Gerrera is. So we'll see how that plays out. But yeah, that was sort of it was a curveball for me a little bit, but I'm excited to see him.
Yeah, and it almost seems like from the trailer there might be some division between these the Bad Batch as well. So is there a point in the middle of the show where they kind of like separate out, go on separate missions, and then eventually reunify? That's a possibility too, because it just becomes villain of the week or adventure of the week if it becomes too rote. It becomes like the old school A-Team or what you see now, Chicago Fire. Okay, what's it this week? What are we dealing with this week? This could be interesting to have them kind of be split up, kind of go their own paths, because they're not really known for following orders fully. So why would they necessarily always follow the orders of their leaders in the Bad Batch as well? So could create some good conflict, some interesting conflict to explore in the show, which I would love to see as well.
For sure. We've got Crosshair actually like not in this trailer a lot. We see the other four. For whatever reason, we've got Crosshair missing from a bunch of the scenes. So I think at some point it's like he's either going to go off on his own solo mission or maybe he teams up with Tarkin. I don't know what his deal is. He was kind of a dick when he was in season 7 of the Clone Wars. So maybe he's got his own thing going on. And we see a couple solo shots of Hunter kind of off on his own in the show too. So it will be interesting to see them on their own in sort of a different environment rather than just being around each other. That's something that we haven't seen much of yet. So excited.
Could be very, very interesting for sure. All right, let's answer a couple of Streamlabs. Just to remind you all, we got over 100 of y'all watching us live right now. Thank you so much. Please remember, hit that like button. If you hadn't hit that thumbs up button in case it's your first time on YouTube, that's the like button. Hit that like, give us some love. If you're watching this show later, a lot of you do, please make sure you hit that like button and leave a comment down below. Likes and comments to help raise the visibility of this show and raise the visibility of the channel overall, so we'd appreciate it madly. I'm going to put the link in the chat here in just a second after I read another Streamlab. So any of you who want to come in live to ask a question of me and Laura, you can do so over the next few minutes before we wrap up the show here. Let's see. What's the next one? It's from Brennan Marr. He says, hello there. It would be interesting if Kumail is playing Anakin's childhood friend Kitster. I believe he was also a slave, and it would be interesting to see how his life turned out. Also, do the Bad Batch clones have the Order 66 chip in their heads? So, two questions there for one. Laura, do you think Kitster, do you think that could be something Kumail Nanjiani is playing?
I love that idea. I think that would be hilarious. Of all the characters we could bring back, if one of them is Kitster, that would just be wild. I'm here for that. He was so cute, the Phantom Menace. So that would be really fun. I wonder if it works. Again, I'm like, does the math work out on that? Like, let's say he's like 45, Kumail is, and then it's like, I don't know.
You can't.
I think that does work because he would be like 42, or something in Kenobi. So that would work. I also like it.
When do we adhere to time? All of a sudden, we have a 65-year-old looking 40-year-old Boba Fett. So we don't adhere to time. Last I checked, so everyone came after me for that. But yes, Kumail is playing Snoke. Absolutely. Yes, Kumail is playing Snoke. Sure.
Yes.
Sure. All right, I put the link in the chat, ladies and gentlemen. If you want to come in live over the next few minutes, ask us a question. We'd love to have you on the show if you're brave enough to come in live and ask us something. 50 Shades of Geek says, do you think... one last part of Brennan's thing. Do you think the Bad Batch clones have the Order 66 chip in their heads? I know it's a question you had earlier. Do you think they do or don't?
I think they do.
Yeah.
I think they do, but I don't think they work. Because I think they're mutated enough that like it just like fries itself and it doesn't function right.
I agree with that. All right, 50 Shades of Geek says, do you think Fennec will be an ally to the Bad Batch or an enemy, or maybe she'll switch allegiances as it suits her? Yeah, let's not forget, we love that Ming-Na Wen played her, but she's a bounty hunter. So which side of the fence is she going to be on in this situation? Is she hired to track down the Bad Batch? That's a possibility as well, don't you think?
No, I think that's definitely a possibility that she could be a potential adversary. Speaking of Fennec, I do think that we're going to see Boba Fett at some point in this show. I think we need to get a little bit of history of like there has to be some history between them, which is why they
Yeah.
ultimately team up in The Mandalorian. So I think there's going to be something there. I think this is a good opportunity to bring something like that into this story. So
Right.
I think that's for sure. I would be willing to bet that she's hunting for them. There's a scene in the trailer where her and Hunter sort of seem to be at odds. So that was kind of my assumption upon seeing that scene too.
Yeah, I could see that. All right, let's bring in some people live who have already jumped into the chat here or jumped into the behind the scenes here. All right, 50 Shades of Geek, what's going on, man? Oh, yeah, you're all decked out. What's up, bud?
Nice.
Please tell me you can hear me.
Yes.
Yes.
Good. It's a new microphone. I wasn't sure it was going to work. First of all, I just want to address the question from earlier. Maybe the reason why Tarkin wants the Bad Batch taken out is because they don't have the chips in their heads.
Yeah, maybe.
That's just a suggestion. Okay. Now for the actual question.
Okay.
First of all, I love that we're getting all these Star Wars shows. I never am one of those people who just stop going back and redoing some stuff, go forward, make some original. I just love stories.
Yeah.
If it's a prequel, if it's a spin-off, if it's a continuation of something, I just love stories, and especially Star Wars stories. And I'm assuming you guys do too. So I'm really excited that we're getting to see all the stuff from Obi-Wan, the Bad Batch, even Cassian Andor. So do you guys are on the same page with me? Do you think it's good, it's healthy for the Star Wars universe, or do you think it just dilutes the product the more they go back and focus on stuff we've already seen? I know that they're going back into the High Republic, but do you think that this stuff, what we're seeing right now, is it good or bad?
Laura, what do you think?
I think it's great. And I think one of the ways that they can balance it, because I totally understand your point. It's like we've spent a lot of time within this 100-year period of time in the Star Wars universe. So I totally get people that are like, can we please jump into the future, do some future storytelling, or let's go way back to the KOTOR era. And I totally understand that sentiment. I think the way that you can balance it, because I very much enjoy this era of the age of the Empire and the age of the Republic. I very much enjoy this period of storytelling, and part of that might be because I'm a relatively new fan to Star Wars storytelling. But I think the way to balance it is to not bring in too many connections. We're talking about who we want to see in the Bad Batch, who we want to see in the Kenobi show. It's just as realistic a possibility that every single person in that cast, besides the 4 that we know, are coming in and playing completely new roles of new characters that we've never met before. So I think as long as we're just constantly expanding and not making everything have to relate to each other, but also balancing in a way that keeps it fun for the old school fans and the people who like the connections, Star Wars has always done a pretty decent job, I think, of striking that perfect balance. And my hope is that they would continue to do so with all of this new storytelling.
Yeah, there's more to come. I think, we've got Rangers of the New Republic. We've got the Ahsoka Tano show. We've got the Rogue Squadron coming. So there's going to be other time frames that are going to be explored. Eventually we'll get that High Republic as well, if they ever get that off the ground. So there's possibilities. But I think for right now, just like they did from the beginning with The Force Awakens, they're playing it somewhat a little bit safe while expanding out this time. Do you know what I'm saying? And having a little fun exploring it, because we all have a foundational understanding of this time. We've all existed within this world and know about this world for quite some time through multiple media, through film, television, and comic books, what have you. We've been able to, video games even, we've been able to exist during this time. So now lay a couple of more groundwork here, and then they're going to start moving on, I'm sure, as we go into the new Star Wars. I think that's very much on tap. I think if we keep going back over the next 5 years, if we still haven't gotten out of this time era consistently, then I think it becomes a little bit like you're defaulting to this because you have no new ideas or you don't have the guts to jump out into a different time frame. And it doesn't always mean it's going to work, though, 50 Shades. I mean, look at Discovery. This last season of Discovery, they jumped, 1,000 years into the future, and a lot of Discovery fans were kind of
I haven't gotten to that part yet.
Well, I was just saying they were upset at how this season played out. I'm not going to spoil anything, but a lot of them were upset, and here they are moving away from the Kirk Spock stuff, and people were not happy with it.
Okay, but other than the High Republic, which is the obvious one, do you think right now they have a plan as opposed to what happened with the sequel trilogy, where they very clearly did not?
I would hope so at this point.
Same.
I would like to give them faith that they do. I think what Filoni and Favreau have injected into the IP, has kind of like, kind of shown a little bit more maybe to Kathleen. Look, I'm not going to speculate. It's an intelligent woman, an accomplished woman, made $6 billion for this franchise, spearheading it. So to me, maybe they saw something here that they want to lay the groundwork. I think they heard the complaints. I think they heard people's issues with it, and they're adjusting accordingly. So yes, I do believe there is a plan now in place going forward, because I think Disney would be absolutely foolish not to have a plan at this point. Laura, what do you think?
I would agree with that sentiment. I think that they've learned their lesson from the sequel trilogy in terms of going into something without a plan.
Yeah.
And you have to think about like the animated shows, how long they're in the works before we ever hear any whisper of them.
Yeah.
So when it comes to all these shows that they're developing, like Rangers of the Republic, The Mandalorian, the Ahsoka Tano show, that are all supposed to culminate in this big event, like there's got to be a plan there, and it's probably been in the works for years. So I think that maybe comes from Dave Filoni's style, because he's so used to working in animation that takes so much longer to fully execute. I think that a lot of ways, I think they've realized that, the animated storytelling that Dave Filoni's been doing was a lot more well received, universally received, I think, than the sequel trilogy was. So I think that they're looking at that and trying to see that as an example and expand upon it. That would be my guess, and that would be my hope. that they're taking this seriously at this point. I mean, the Leslie Headland show that we learned about, the Acolyte, is supposed to be set right at the end of the High Republic. We're not even like close to getting that show, I don't think. And I've seen her do interviews where she's talked about like, the things that she's reading and the periods of time that she's referencing, and like all the different parts of the canon that she's referencing, so she can kind of get up to speed and learn about this stuff now, when I'm sure there's already some initial ideas for that show in the works. But the way that she talks about it, because we're so far away from actually seeing that, I have a lot of faith that they are really putting in the like work in terms of like planning the foundations of these things now.
Yeah. All right.
Okay.
All right, 50 Shades.
This is why I come here, to talk to people who are smarter than I am.
Please. You're very kind, 50 Shades. Thanks so much for stopping in, brother, man.
Thank you.
Much love, brother. All right, let's bring in Brennan. Always good to see Brennan. What's going on, dude?
Hey,
hello, Brennan.
There you are. Hello. There you are, discussing the plan again.
There's always got to be a plan, right? Hopefully they've learned.
Knows how I feel.
I love it when a plan comes together.
Rocha knows how I feel about that.
It's true. It's true. I know.
Do you think the Bad Batch will be multi-season or no?
I gotta think yes, but I wonder if it might depend on how well it's received and how many new viewers it brings into Disney Plus, because that really seems to be the key metric they're looking at, of how many new viewers are they getting every month. But I'd be willing to bet yes, just because there's room to grow with that show, given where they're starting it. So I like to think yes in that situation.
Yeah, I think so too. I think it all depends on the story they want to tell. As you said, as we just said here, the plan, is there a plan for Bad Batch to go 3 or 4 seasons? I can't see it being 7 seasons like Clone Wars.
No.
So I think 3 to 4 seems to make sense. Rebels was 5 and then they're out. You know what I'm saying? So I think that builds up the anticipation, and that builds up the desire to see it. And we're no longer, I think Rebels was 22 episodes or something like that. We're no longer there in terms of the amount of expectation or demand from the fans. So you can easily do 3 or 4 seasons of 5 or 6 episodes or 8 episodes a season and roll on from that story.
All right.
Yeah.
Cool.
You good?
Yeah.
What do you think? Do you think it'll be multi-episode or multi-season? Yeah.
I think so, because there's a lot to explore in that era.
Yeah, there is.
100%.
Yep.
Cool.
That's all I got.
All right. Well, thank you, Brandon. Great to see you,
Thank
brother.
you. Good to see you, Laura.
Yeah, nice to see you, Brennan.
All right, let's bring in our director or a director of such noted classics as I don't know. You tell him, Alan Smithy. Alan Smithy, what's up?
Smitty.
Hey, I can
Hey,
be
buddy.
your director, Rocha. You know,
Yeah, yeah.
Smile. See, he did it.
Oh, good
All right.
job. Thank you.
Well
Well,
directed.
anyway, it's good to see both of you.
Thank you.
I don't know. There's so many things to talk about, but I just thought of this thing,
Okay.
which is that I'm a huge Clone Wars fan. And lately, not in terms of Clone Wars, but in terms of other things that won't be named, I'm thinking of this new term, economic storytelling. That's probably not a new term. But
No.
for me, the reality is that lately there's been a lot of movies that are getting longer and longer. And one of the things I love about Clone Wars is how concise and how limited the fat is on those shows. I'm not trying to fat shame a TV show, sorry.
How
You know
dare
what I
you.
mean?
Yes.
So I don't know. I think George Lucas practically invented that concept back with the original Star Wars. He was trying to say, like, how fast can we move the information along? And he did more for like editing than people who were like, oh, Michael Bay is the one that created this like shot. But it's really George Lucas. And I think the Clone Wars is where, and Rebels as well, any of those short format, the storytelling is so much better in my opinion, because it's just, they don't waste time and they give you the exact right. So I've talked enough. What do you guys think?
What do you think, Laura?
I think that we're living in a period of time where attention spans are only getting shorter and shorter. And for some reason, movies are getting longer and longer. And I will never understand the justification. If you are not in a, if you're in a world like Star Wars, a world that isn't of this world, you might need some extra time to do the world building. That makes sense. Your movie might be a little bit longer, like any of the original trilogy films. I cannot get on board with these movies. Like I watched, what was it? It was the Chapter 2 the other day, and I was just like at my wit's end by the end of it. I'm like, this movie could have ended an hour ago. I don't know why I'm still watching this. But I think, we're living in, the age of like TikTok, where, if you can get it, you can make that entertainment in under a minute. And then you want me to go watch a 3-hour movie. Like there's something there that doesn't line up. And so I think in terms of this, building these new series for Disney Plus, erring on the side of shorter is probably a way to go. I also say that as a person that complains when the Mandalorian episodes are too short, because I want more and more and more of that story as much as I can gobble up. But I think that, as these new generations keep popping up, it's going to continue. That attention span is just going to continue to get slower. The ADHD is going to go up. And
what
it's
were
just
we talking about?
Yeah.
the length of time of these shows.
Oh,
but
that's right. Sorry.
Trimming the fat, when you're not doing these filler episodes and you're not having all this extra content you have to trim, and the story efficiency is there, I think that it's going to continue to grow that way, especially in terms of sitting in front of your TV. It's one thing when you're trapped in a movie theater, not trapped, but like you're sitting in a dark theater, you've got your giant barrel of popcorn and your extra large soda. You're good to sit there for 2.5 hours, maybe. But when it comes to something that's playing on Disney Plus in front of your TV, I think the shorter the better.
Yeah.
With Clone Wars, I think one of the cool things is that they would do either a one-off or they would go all the way to 4 episodes. That was the longest per arc. But, sometimes it was 2, sometimes it was 3. Yeah. So they were really good at knowing exactly, like the underwater arc on, Mon Calamari. That could have been 4, but they made it 3 because they didn't want to, waste an episode just hanging out. But that was definitely a cool arc there.
Yeah.
It was.
Yeah. I like that.
What are your thoughts on the length of time of our media, John? Any thoughts?
Listen, I'm not the person you want to go to on this thing, because I'm happy to. I watched Zack Snyder's Justice League all in one sitting, and I had a blast for 4 hours watching that movie. Yeah, that nightmare sequence. Yeah. But overall, I had a great time. I love watching long movies if they can keep my attention. Lawrence of Arabia, go see it in the theaters all the time. West Side Story, Ben-Hur. I love the classics that are long, epic movies that keep my attention because they're usually in and out before I know it for me. But I can also consume a 30-minute show and enjoy it, or a 45-minute show. To me, it's always case-by-case basis. And I love TikTok. There's someone I just started following, Katie J. Linz. She does lip sync of Friends, scenes from Friends. And I'm not even a Friends fan, but her creativity at lip syncing the different characters in a scene is genius and so much fun. Who knew lip syncing could bring you millions of followers? Hot damn it, I'd have done it 10 years ago if I knew it was. But like, it's all different in terms of what you're into. So for me, I cross the spectrum always. I have no problem with it. But I do think Laura's correct. I think as more generations come, the desire to consume it in shorter amounts of time is going to overwhelm and be that. Remember Vine? Vine was 6 seconds. And
6 seconds.
We're making millions off 6-second videos, getting followers and what have you. So it's all about the platform, and it's all about the content that you're creating. That dictates the time and people's desire to spend time watching it, for sure.
Right.
Yep.
Now, I think Laura was really asking, though, about your shows, Rocha. She was asking if your shows are too long. That's what I thought she meant. But I would say no way. I mean, if you cut the show short right now, I would be out of the show right now. So,
listen, John, I have a proposal. I want to move this show to TikTok. It's 1 minute every 2 weeks.
Boom. Let's do it.
Fast forward, make it an hour, but then fit that hour into a minute in fast forwards.
I do. I like them fat and long. Thank you, Homo erectus.
Whoa. There was a lot to unpack in that comment.
There was. So, we can only do it in 6 seconds. Yeah. So,
and I'll say very quickly that out of all the Clone Wars, there was one moment that I was very upset at.
Yeah.
And it's that Obi-Wan should have done more to stop Satine's death. They should have figured out how to do that scene so that he could have done something, but instead they just hold him down and he just watches it happen. And there's a bunch of other Mandalorians in the room that would have gone after him, but he's a Jedi. He could have done something.
But that's not Obi-Wan. That's what Anakin would do. That's not what Obi-Wan would do.
I'm not saying he would rage and start slicing people's heads off, but this is the love of his life.
Yeah,
and
true.
I don't know.
He did slice Maul in half after he killed Qui-Gon, so you've got a point.
Yeah.
And Maul was the love of his life,
Yeah,
so.
Yeah, exactly.
Certainly.
I can't kill you. You were my brother. Okay.
All right. Thanks, Smithy. Great to see you, brother.
Hey, good to see both of you too, and have a nice evening.
You too, Smithy.
See ya. All right, I got one more, and then we're going to get out of here from this fat, long show. That being said, Blue Panther says, I love Zack Snyder's Justice League. I love it big and long, just like John. Hello. All right. I suppose I deserve that. All right. Let's bring on Adrian coming in. Adrian, your camera's not working. Oh, there you go. From the UK. What's up, bud?
I'm fine.
Can you hear us,
John, how are you?
Good.
You hear me? I've got earphones in, that's why.
Yeah. No, that's okay. We can hear you. Nice to see you.
Yeah,
nice to see you too, Laura. To the small down version of Laura Kelly, boo. To the real Laura Kelly, I respect you.
Fair enough.
All right. What's your question, man?
How you doing, John? I just want to ask you quick, how you been? It's been a while.
I'm
sorry,
I'm having trouble hearing him. What are you saying?
Hang on.
All right. Whoa. All right, let's take that.
There he goes.
Oh, well. All right, Adrian. Well, he did stop in. So sorry, Adrian. We couldn't get more time with you for whatever reason. It wasn't working there. But thanks for stopping in. Thanks for stopping in for sure. And thanks to everybody who stopped in tonight. Thank you for the Streamlabs and the super chats that you sent in tonight. Always appreciate that. We try to do at least one live show every month, and it's always a blast to have you all riding alongside with us. Please don't forget to hit that like button. Don't forget to leave a comment, and don't forget to share this thing on your social media. Let people know about the Jedi Way. Laura, where can people find you and everything you got going on? Thanks again for riding shotgun with me on these shows. Where can they find you?
Always a pleasure, John. You can find me over on Twitter at @shutup_Laura. That is also my Instagram handle. And then go find my show that I do with my friend Alice, where we drink wine and talk about Star Wars. It is called Force Toast, a Star Wars Happy Hour. And you can find that show on Twitter at Force Toast Pod. That'll lead you to our website where you can find all the places that you can download our show. And then, yeah, Blue Band, the Milk Company, was in the chat tonight. Definitely go find them on YouTube and check out their AI work. They did, it was a Star Wars Episode 10 written by AI, and then the most recent one was Solo 2 written by AI, and it was a grand old time. Both of them were just hysterically fun, so worth checking out for sure.
Well, there you go. The next time you need a voiceover artist, Blue Bantha, look me up. I'll gladly do it. There you go. Oh, thanks for the sticker. Very kind of you. Thank you. All right. Let's get on out of here. You guys can find me at The Rocha Says on Twitter and on Instagram. Remember to subscribe to the channel down below. Got all kinds of content happening here in the world of the Outlaw Nation. And we just crossed 16,600 subscribers. Let's start marching towards 17,000 and then 20,000 after that, people. So please, down there, subscribe. And also, I can announce this. We did speak about Bad Batch that is coming out on May 4th. Remember, 70-minute episode on May 4th. And then the next episode will be happening that I think a couple days later on Friday. And Laura Kelly will officially be joining the Geek Buddies to review these episodes here on the channel and on the Geek Buddies podcast stream feed, rather. So please get involved with that as well. Come in and join us. It's our honor to have Laura back. She was great for the Mandalorian review, so it'll be great to have her back for the Bad Batch reviews as well. So it's going to be a lot of fun. All right, let's get out of here. Much love to you. Remember to wear your mask. Remember to practice social distancing. And Laura, what else do they have to remember?
Remember to always, your focus determines your reality.